Hey guys, and welcome back to Brexit. Brexit England, Northern Ireland, and Eastern Europe. And in Brexit England, we are just surviving. The cost of living crisis is crippling people in this country. No one is having a happy life, apart from who? Rich people. And who are rich people? Tories. And I'm not talking about you Tories who are going to food banks, or you working class Tories, right? Or you benefit Tories. I'm talking about real Tories. They're the ones who are not. They're just like, what cost of living crisis? Because there's no cost of living crisis for them. You think, right, that Dominic Raab is going through the cost of living crisis with you? And if you look onto the Labour benches, right, they're all of those people over there. They're all rich people too. So none of these politicians are going through this cost of living crisis with us, with you, with I, with any of us. They're not going through it. This is our cost of living crisis. And that's why the English are just surviving. That's it. But you have to wonder, yeah, with the English voting, right, for the Tories, have they not been hoisted by their own petard? All will be explained later. And also, welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you so much for all your messages sent me, and a special thanks here to everybody who signed up to my channel. I feel so blessed with so much people that have signed up, so thank you so much for that. I'll go through all your messages, I'll answer as many as I can, but I will like all your messages for definite. So we have, we have a special RIP here to Dennis Waterman, who has passed away, right, at the age of 74 years old, and that is our minder, right? Terry McCann in mind, yeah, Terry McCann, because it was him and George Cole, who was obviously the absolute great Arthur Daly, and so I mean, let's say only 74 years old, but then I say only 74 years old because one of my friends passed away the other day and she's only 53 years old, so whoa, that's like shocking, but Dennis Waterman, 74 years old, and he was such a massive part of us post. All of our lives, who used to watch that, who used to watch Minder from back then. Do you know what I mean? Hold on, the very cool Capri. Yeah, because that's what he used to do. Very cool Capri. And Arthur Daly was just busting that jack, innit? Right? But yeah, no. So we'll say R.I.P. to Dennis Waterman because he was actually a really great guy. And we have a new Doctor who is black, and he what's his name? Suti Gatwa. Right now, I believe, right, that he's actually from Rwanda. I'm sure I read something about him a few months ago, right? And I believe I'm sure he's from Rwanda. Right. I do know for definite, yeah, that he definitely is a wee bonny lad because he's from Scotland, right? So he is Scottish. His background is Rwandan, but he would describe himself as a Scot, do you know what I mean? A Scottish man, right? And he's yeah, I'm sure that he, right, come over here when he was a child from out of the genocide in Rwanda. And you see that word, genocide in Rwanda. And where are we going to send people to? A genocidal Rwanda, a country because he's only young, so I'm sure he must be about 30, he must be 29, 30 years old. He's only young, all right, and funny enough, he's got ginger. No, his hair is light. I think he's must have dyed. I think he must have bleached it blonde, right? But no, he's really charming young man, right? And as I said, he's got. I'm sure from what I've read, I'm sure that he come from Rwanda, right? Which is sort of like, I don't know. I can't call that poetic justice, but there is something that should be called. Right? Thinking that we're just about to send people off to Rwanda, and he is from Rwanda. But then again, right? He was brought up in Scotland, so there's a difference between, the Scottish and the English. And there's a reason why the Scottish, right, can't wait to get the fuck away from us. Right? Imagine that. Our closest cousins, the Scots, can't wait to get the fuck away from us. Why? Because the English are so motherfucking racist. That's the reason why. Because the Scots are like, you know what, no. You keep on imposing, right, these Tory governments on us, right, and we don't want Tory governments. The Scots have showed that from years ago, because the Scots are much more left wing than the English. I mean, the English are far right. That's why they would have had wars. That's why they would have went to wars with the Scots and all that, and the Irish and probably the Welsh too. Right, at some stage, right, you would have found that the English was the people who went to war with all of these people, right, and now, so because you can tell the difference, between like the Irish, the Welsh, and the Scottish, right, there is a major difference, right, in those Caucasian peoples as opposed, right, to the English Caucasians. Right, trust me, there's a major difference. Right? It's so major, right? It's like, it's like worlds apart. It really is. It really is. It really is just like worlds and worlds apart. Right? But we're supposed to be talking about the first black Doctor Who, right? Where every single black person will hear that and go like, oh my God, seriously, do we have to be there with the first black Doctor Who? Give us the first black Prime Minister, and then we can talk. Okay, then we can talk. Or give us the first black police commissioner. Right, go and grab Leroy Logan out of retirement and fling him in there. Right, and then we can talk. Right, until then, right, stop telling us. Oh God, he's the first. He's the first black. Let's say the first black Uber driver. We need to give him an award too. Right? That's where we are. Right. So, but congratulations to Sudhi Gatwa. So I mean, Rwandan Scottish British citizen, and we have over 2 million people in this country who have gone without food in the last month because of the cost of living crisis, and they can't afford food. Right? There are disabled people on the streets asking for food. Right? I had to buy a disabled man some food a few weeks ago, right, about 5 to 11 in the night outside the KFC, right, who was out there begging for food because he was starving hungry. And when I gave him the food, he started eating it straight on the spot. On the spot, he started eating it. Okay, so this is the country that we're living in, right? People have just got a taste of their new energy bills, because your minimum is going to be 54%, but unfortunately some people's has gone up 100%. So some people's direct debits have doubled, right? And have a guess, right, who this doesn't concern. This, right, real Tories. Now we're talking about real Tories here. We're not talking about people who have no money and vote for the Tories. Okay? Right. We're not talking about people who haven't got £100 in their bank account and they're voting for the Tories. Because there's plenty of people in this country who are like that, who are doing full-time jobs, working full-time, and they have not a penny in their bank account, apart from when their wages goes in, and then it literally goes straight back out, because everything, every penny is accounted for, and so they know what they have to do with every single penny, right? So we're not talking about, I'm not talking about those type of people, those type of Tories, because you Tories are just racist Tories. Because that's the reason why you're voting for them. Because they say nice things to you about immigration. Get rid of all the blacks, right? All the brown people, and all people who speak in a funny language. And that is why right now, right, there are over 2 million people in this country, right, who have gone without a full day without food in the last month. I don't know, right? But what you got to understand, right, is this is long term culture wars that these people have been playing. Long term culture wars, because look at the choice what they gave you in the last election. right? They gave you, right, the choice of, you know what, you can have some serious racism, but unfortunately that's going to destroy the country. It's going to destroy businesses, right? It's going to leave us in a really precarious position, right? And long term, we're going to be looking like we're begging the EU, like we're begging them for this, we're begging them for that. Where we're going to put ourselves into a position where we've got no power at all. Okay, they gave you that choice. You can have that choice, right? Or you had the choice of a man who said, "Listen, you know what I want to do? I want to redistribute the wealth. Okay, I want to look out for people with mental health problems. Right? I want to take back all our utility companies. Right? So we'll just go with those for now. Those were the two choices that this country had. Right? You had Jeremy Corbyn, who wanted to redistribute the wealth. And you had Boris Johnson, who said, I've got an oven ready deal, right, so you can have your racist country. And what did you go for? You decided, oh, well, you know what? Redistribution of wealth? No. Because you know what? We are not worthy of that. And we know where our place is. The stupidity, right, that you have shown. I mean, these people have come with like, what? Oh, we're going to level up. The Midlands engine, right? The Northern powerhouse. Every single one of those phrases means one thing. It means, right, that your problems, right, are people of colour, right, and people who speak in a foreign language to you. All of your problems stem from there. That's what all of those sayings mean. Every last one of them. That's what it means. Right? Because these people have been playing culture wars, right, with Caucasians from ever since. Okay? Because remember, right, that I'm gonna go back now because I've got to go from memory. But remember, right, there was a stage in this country, right, where you could only be a landowner to vote. Okay, then it got to a stage here where you could only be a property owner to vote. And then I did learn this in school, and I went to a pretty good school because I went to a grammar school. Alright, but I think around 1918, men over the age of 21 and women over the age of 30, right, got the vote. And we're talking about people who was non-property owners. So basically anyone over that age in this country got the right to vote, right? So you got to understand, yeah, that the landowners have been losing power. The landowners, right, are gentry. Okay, these are your lords, your ladies, going up to royalty. Right, so from royalty and then all down to your viscounts and all these other titles, what all these people have. Because remember before, right, in this country, you had to have you would have to have like some type of family title, right? If you wanted to you wanted to enter like a jousting back in like because a lot of this has started from like back in the real problem started for them probably back in the 19th century. Right, so we're talking about the late 1800s, right? So remember what to have got the vote, people would have had to have fought hard to have got the vote in the first place, because obviously women would have fought before everyone over the age of 21 got the right to vote, and obviously women over the age of 30. Right. Women would have been fighting for that. So the suffragettes must have been before that then, because I can't remember the date of the suffragettes, but that must have been just before that, right? But so they've been playing culture wars, right? But you see, as I said, the gentry have been losing power, right, for the longest of time, right? So back from like the late 1800s or the late 19th century, right? Early 19th century, they were losing power. They would have been losing their power, right? And that is the reason I believe now, right? And I'm not just thinking about this, but that's the reason that they would have introduced black and brown people into this country, because they would have known that for them, they could play real culture wars, right? Because you're going to have some Caucasians, right, who will never ever vote for a party that they see as for immigrants, and that's what the Labour Party is seen as. And because all of the immigrants that would have come to this country would naturally be working class. I mean, because the first ones, first black and brown people who come to this country. I'm not talking about because you did have have quite a few black people come here just after slavery. Just after slavery was done. Do you know what I mean? But obviously, the influx I'm talking about would have been very much from like the mid 50s, or sorry, the very early, probably the early 50s, and maybe even the late 40s. That's when the influx, obviously, the West Indians, and then obviously much more Asians in the 70s, right? But there was a lot of Asians in this country before the 70s, right? There was right, so right. But that's the reason why, because they know to themselves, you know what, yeah, they can keep the culture wars going. They can keep culture wars going, right? If there's black people in this country and brown people and people who speak a foreign, different, and a funny language, right? Then they can always keep the culture wars going. Can always keep it going if that happens. So you see, great minds would have been thinking even back then. Right. This is one way the gentry can always stay in power, because trust me, the Tories are gentry. That's who they really are. Right? They're not. Right? Tories, right, don't live in terraced houses. Okay, that's just a fact. Right? If you think you're a real Tory living in a terraced house, right, then you've got another thing coming. What you are is you're a racist arse, because you're only voting for the Tories because they say nice things to you about immigration. That's the reason why you're voting for them. So just try and give it up, right? Because now we have over 2 million people in this country, right, who can't afford food, right, and are going, one day a month without eating. Okay, that is the country that we're in, right? We're not in a country, right, where people have got like 5,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 pound in their bank. You know who has got that money in their bank? Tories, real Tories, right? Tories who have less than £100 in the bank, right? Because every single month when your money comes in, right, it all goes straight back out, right? You're not a Tory. What you are is a racist arse. That's what you are. And all you're doing, right, is you're voting against your very own interests, because the Tories say nice bitty things to you about immigration, and you like to hear that, right? Even though you know to yourself, right, this is going to make me a lot worse off, but you still go for it. Still go for it. Britain says that Putin should be treated the same as Adolf Hitler. And they've just imposed another £1.7 billion worth of sanctions upon their ass too, right? And I believe that they've just announced another £1.3 billion of weapons that they're going to be sending to the Ukraine. So last week it was, what was it, 300 million, or was it 330 million? I can't remember how much threes was in there, but I know there was a couple. There was definitely threes in there, right? But so I don't know if that money's on top. Right, the 1.3 billion that they're going to be sending in weapons, if that's on top of the 300 billion, but I would suggest that it probably is. So you see, all of the weapons companies are just like, this is what we live for. We live for war. We live for people's misery. Right? That is the reason why we live. We was born to do this. We was born to make weapons to kill in masses. Because I'm quite sure that God would have his gun on his hip and a sheriff's hat on, because that's what he would want. I think today the Russians celebrate the anti-fascist day. Really? So you couldn't make this shit up, because it was VE Day I think yesterday, isn't it? Because that was the 8th. Because I think it's the day when the I'm sure it's the day when the Germans signed the treaty to say that they're no longer trying to murder, and take over the whole world. So I think that's when the final surrender came in. So for the Russians, it's today. So which is what, and they celebrate. I'm sure they celebrate it as Anti-Fascist Day. But then when you look at what Putin's doing at the moment, they say, well, how anti-fascist could you be while you're bombing schools and killing 60 people just yesterday? Wow. So and you're really celebrating now. And to celebrate, I'm looking at children in Russia, right, going to school dressed as like a tank with the Z on the front. And then you look over into the Ukraine, and there's children that huddling in underground tunnels and in that steel works, like that metal works, right? There's children huddling, and you think to yourself, wow. But you see, there's me talking about this, right? And and saying that that Britain's going to say that Putin should be treated like Hitler. But also Netanyahu should have been treated like Hitler also. And there's plenty of other world leaders who should also be treated the same as Hitler. So I'm getting caught up. I'm getting caught up in this. But while there's wars going on in places like Yemen, and why people like the Uyghurs are being held hostage. But the world's focus is on the white people who this is happening to. The white people who has been genocided out. Not there's no one in the world, right, speaking about the apartheid, right, that the Palestinian people are suffering at the hands of the Israelis. See, what a fucked up place this is. Seriously. And in light of Beargate, Keir Starmer has had to cancel his he had a question and answer that seminar booked up for today, right? But he's had to cancel it, right, because he's been caught up in the whole Beargate scenario, right? And Jacob Rees-Mogg, right, was on the telly yesterday and speaking about it, right? So Jacob Rees-Mogg said, Jacob Rees-Mogg said, well, because Keir Starmer has been calling for Boris Johnson to resign. Boris Johnson should have resigned over like the money that he stole from this country over PPE. Okay, he should have resigned from back then over that. Okay, right. But so because Keir Starmer's calling for the resignation of so Jacob Rees-Mogg said, well, he's been hoisted by his own petard, and one should be very careful with petards. Which I was like, you fucking prick, you absolute dickhead, right? And obviously now I've got to look up what the hell is a petard, right? So because I'm just thinking to myself, well, hoisted. So this has got to be something on a ship or a boat that you hoist up, or maybe a flag, some type of flag or something like that. Because it's got to be something that you hoist. And no. A petard is a medieval incendiary device, right? That people would often blow themselves the fuck up, right, when setting it up, right? So, but I don't know why you're hoisted, because I was supposed to be hoisted upwards by your own bomb, right? So that's the meaning of that. But then look, right, when we go to Partygate and these things there, right, we're looking at this and thinking, well, hold on a minute, right? Partygate, Beargate. Right? What the fuck are you talking about? Doesn't this show you, yeah, that what we've got completely the wrong people in power in this country. They're completely the wrong people. Whatever side you look at. They're talking about Beargate, talking about Partygate. There's over 2 million people in this country who haven't, who have gone a day without eating because they haven't got the money to do it. But these guys are talking about some petty fucking bullshit, right? Because we have completely the wrong people in power, right? Whether you look over on the Tory side, whether you look on the Labour side. Because remember, right, that the Labour Party have been taken over by the Tories. Okay? That happened years ago. Okay, this is the reason why they have to make sure that someone from the left can never ever be the Labour Party leader, and as soon as they are, right, if you notice, they just go all out after them, right, and even their own side turns on them, because remember what they've done to Corbyn. Because remember, right, his own very own politicians never got behind him. Okay, we've got to remember, yeah, is they resigned en masse. His whole front bench resigned en masse to completely undermine him. Right? And when you have things like that happening to you, right, and then you've got the press, right, banging on, oh, you're also anti-Semitic. That was always going to be the case. Always going to be the case. But all of these things, right, was done to the poor and to the working class, because there's much more of us than there is of them, and they know that, and that's why they're just playing you off with these culture wars all the time. Oh, all of your problems, it's all the blacks' fault. It's all their fault. Right? All the the state of the roads, it's all the blacks' faults. Right? The reason why the underground is so full of, it's all these black and brown and all these foreigners. It's all them. Right? You can't get into your doctor's surgery. It's all because of all right? So this is the reason why they play all these culture wars, because they know for them it works. Because, as I said, there's much more of us than there is of them. Okay, right, but until right, the masses who are motherfucking asses, until they work that out, right, we're going to be in this same position forever. We'll always be here, always. And Sinn Fein are now the largest party in Northern Ireland, and you know why that is? Because the DUP have been howling at the moon, right, and right, talking to leprechauns like a bunch of fucking idiots, instead of what Sinn Fein's doing. Sinn Fein, right, are talking about politics, the cost of living crisis, local politics. That's what Sinn Fein are doing. That's why Sinn Fein are now the biggest party, because they've got another party called the Alliance who have come up, and they've got a major part of the vote, and they've put the DUP into second place, right? But this is all down to the DUP, right, who have been hoisted by their own petard, and now they're complaining about it, right, after they was the ones, right, who followed Theresa May and Boris Johnson, right, into oblivion. Right, and now, right, this is for England, right, very serious, because obviously they prefer to have Ireland split, but I think this is much more going towards the reunify, because that's what people are looking at. You can clearly see that. That's what people are looking at. They're more looking to reunify Ireland, right? And you just think, well, imagine that. Right, this Britain, right, is this United Kingdom is completely just erupted, right? Where the Scots want to get the fuck away from us, right? Because the English are so racist, right? The Irish have always wanted to get away from us, and it's very strangely, yeah, because from when I was a kid, right, I always supported Sinn Fein, which, by the way, back then was the IRA, right? But I always was in support of them, because I never thought, right, that like England had the right to send soldiers, right, into Northern Ireland like that. And if you look at days like Bloody Sunday and things like that, right, but for some reason, it was said when I was a kid. I'm talking about before I was in my teens, right? I knew, right, how Irish people felt. I don't know how that was, but I knew how Irish people felt, and I think, yeah, that if you understand, like, Irish people, right, I think most people would have been in support of shit, because in this country, I'd say that a lot of people was very much in support of Sinn Fein. A lot of people secretly, because obviously you've seen what they've done to Jeremy Corbyn over the whole. Oh well, look, he used to support the IRA. but I think it was, you know, supporting their right to determine, you know, their own lives, because that's what because they wasn't allowed to do that, and that, you know, the British holding them back. Look how I'm just so far into this video. I'm like 30 odd minutes in already. I can't believe that, right? But yeah. So I think that the you know, so that's why a lot of people in this country was in support of them, and now they're the biggest party in Ireland, and all of that, right, is the DUP's own fault, because the DUP have got a mentality of from back in the 70s and the 80s, right? All they know is violence. That's all they know, and that's what they're going to bring to the table now in Ireland. Because you know what, they've been, you know, they've virtually been smashed to pieces in Ireland. I've seen Arlene on the TV, you know, and you know these people, right, who have absolutely been hoisted by their own petard because they were ridiculously stupid, right, to vote, right, you know, and because they helped, because they went into coalition with the Tories. Okay, so helped this Tory government get them exactly where they are now, right? And you know, so if they want to know, right, who's to blame for their current situation, they need look no further than a mirror, because it's their own fault, right, that they're in this position now, right? And we have Pencil Neck Tin Lizzie Trust, right, who has threatened to suspend the Brexit deal if the EU don't change the Irish protocol. We're back in Ireland again, right? And Britain really thinks, yeah, that it has got any power to do anything. I mean, think to myself, what are you talking about, Liz Truss? Right? You don't see already, right, that our businesses can barely operate in Europe, barely operate in Europe, right? And Liz Truss is talking about she wants to pull, suspend the Brexit deal in weeks. She's going to suspend the Brexit deal. I'll say, shut up, pencil neck, you flipping fool. Someone needs to sharpen her flipping neck up, because the woman's a damn idiot. Right? As if to say Britain has got any power. I'll tell you how much power Britain's got. Britain's got this much power that Australia can send over, right, beef, right, of animals that have been kept in cruel conditions, because Britain has no say so, right? And in the conditions what they're kept in Australia wouldn't be allowed in this country, and certainly wouldn't be allowed in the EU. You wouldn't be allowed to keep, because they wouldn't allow them in their market, and they, and in our market over here, right, we wouldn't allow our farmers to do what the Australian farmers are allowed to do. So that just shows you how much power these people really have. And today, the people of England, right, have been hoisted. I'm just loving this phrase. I'm just loving this saying now, because something what pisses me off about Jacob Rees-Mogg, right? He's such an arse, but he does make me laugh. But he's such an idiot, right? Because he makes me laugh, I think, because he's such an idiot. Because when he comes up with terms like that, you just have to think to yourself, really, yeah. So the people of England have done this to yourself, right? It's your own fault, right, that your energy costs have been doubled in some cases, and that over 2 million people, right, can't afford to feed themselves. It's your very own fault for being a bunch of racist fools, and this will teach your motherfucking asses a lesson. And also, my friends, this is By Any Means Necessary. I'm the MC John Ribs. It was really nice to speak to you guys. Comments below.